I have 7 o'clock on my end, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. My name is Holly Grand. I am going to be facilitating the webinar this evening. A few reminders before we get started. Your cameras, microphones, and chat are all going to be disabled during the webinar this evening. If you have any questions about any of the proposed regulations, please make sure to use that Q&A feature that's located on the bottom of your screen in Zoom. We are going to be going through both saltwater and freshwater presentations before answering any questions, but please feel free to type your questions into the Q&A box at any point during the webinar this evening. If you would like to provide comments about the proposed regulations, you must either email them to the designated contacts or submit them through our online portal. We are not going to be taking comments about proposed regulations through Zoom. Contact information and links are going to be shown on the screen at various points during the webinar this evening. And you can also find that information on the Parks and Wildlife website, social media, and in a follow-up email from Zoom. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Dr. Cieslin to cover some of the proposed saltwater fishing regulations.
Good evening, everyone. Just a moment while I share my screen with you all. And there we go. Before we get started, Holly introduced me. My name is Dr. Cieslin. I'm the chief of our science and policy branch here within Coastal Fisheries. Before I get started on our statewide regulations process and proposed regulations, I did want to talk just a minute about the latest news, and that's our coast-wide fish kill as a result of the latest freeze event. And while I won't be answering any questions related to the coastal freeze and associated fish kill, I did want to share some information with you all. We've received lots of calls and photos, and we certainly appreciate the concern of our anglers and conservation enthusiasts across the coast. I can share this with you. Our team of biologists initially got calls on, it was Valentine's Day, about fish kills in the lower Laguna Madre. And from then on, from February 14th to about February 27th, a team of folks all up and down the coast conducted fish kill assessments. We've now moved into the next phase, and that phase entails quantifying the impacts to the fishery and essentially calculating an estimate of the fish kill, counting the numbers of dead fish along the coast. I can say that this is going to be a significant freeze event, or was a significant freeze event, impacting both non-game and game fish. And as with any freeze, our spotted sea trout, the speckled trout, really took it hard, as they always do with the freeze events. Some areas were hit harder than others. Our estimates of fish kills along the coast, they'll be forthcoming, hopefully next week, and we promise to get those numbers to you as soon as we can, if not earlier. We appreciate your patience, and once we have a full picture and understanding of the impact, and we're able to benchmark that and compare that back to the previous freeze events, we'll be working hard. I can tell you we're working every day with our commissioners to determine what, if any, steps we're going to need to take to accelerate in the recovery of the fish populations on the coast. So with that, I'll hop right into our coastal fisheries statewide proposals. This presentation will include proposed changes to saltwater fishing regulations for license year 2022. As a reminder, that license year 2022 begins on September 1st of 2021. Our current regulation proposals will be proposed for final consideration and adoption at the March 25th Parks and Wildlife Commission meeting. These proposals include changes to the crab trap fishing in Aransas Bay and a clarification item regarding red snapper bag limits. Just as a reminder, our current regulations in Aransas Bay include prohibitions of both commercial and recreational use of crab traps, This regulation appears to have been in place since the early 1960s. We're not exactly sure of its origins, but believe it had to do with navigation within the bay system there. Our current regulation prevents waterfront homeowners and shore-based recreational crabbers from fishing for crabs with crab traps from areas such as docks and piers and bulkheads. Our current regulations, just as a refresher, include a crab trap limit of 6 traps per license for recreational use, and a restriction that limits the checking of traps, what I like to refer to as our legal shooting hours. That same period of day applies to the removing of traps from the water, and that's that time 30 minutes before sunrise and to 30 minutes after sunset. So you can't actively check the traps during the nighttime, and you must use a valid gear tag attached to a buoy or to a pier. The currently restricted area is shown on this map. Um, you can see the highlighted in orange. The area begins in the north at Hale Point and extends a half-mile from the shoreline down around Goose Island, past Fulton and Rockport and 9 Mile Point, and ending near Tolly Island. Give folks just a second to kind of orient themselves to the map. So our intent with this potential regulation change would be to create a bit more recreational opportunity for crab trap fishing, as long as folks are doing it from a shore, a dock, a pier, or a bulkhead. We don't believe the recreational harvest from this additional opportunity is expected. It's expected to be limited, and we don't anticipate this would impact the local crab population. Additionally, this would not open the restricted area to commercial crabbing, and therefore there is no loss of opportunity for commercial crab fishermen because the area is already closed to commercial crabbing. As part of our stakeholder process, we held a public scoping meeting held virtually, as we're doing here tonight via Zoom. We held that meeting in early December. Holly helped host that as well. Our attendance was low and primarily attended by those in Aransas County. And based on our scoping meeting, we found that those participating supported a regulation change to allow the recreational crabbing from fixed structures. Folks in attendance supported a 3-trap limit. Additionally, our regional director there, based in Rockport, Perry Trial, has received support from various community members, including many residents, mayors of both Rockport and Fulton, the Aransas County judge, and including the Aransas County Navigation District. We did hear some concern, just minor concern, about the length of line securing the trap to those stationary objects. So with that, we are recommending the following regulation change to allow recreational use of up to 3 crab traps in the areas of Aransas County that are currently prohibited from using crab traps. And the crab traps must be securely tethered to a fixed object. As mentioned, a dock, a pier, or a bulkhead, and that wouldn't include any open water traps. All right, this next item we are recommending is strictly a clarification regarding red snapper bag limits. Under a federal rulemaking based on Amendment 50 of the Gulf of Mexico Fishery Management Plan for reef fish, this created a state-based management program for recreational angling. States are authorized to establish seasons and bag limits for red snapper harvested from federal and state waters. Texas state waters are open year-round for recreational red snapper fishing. However, by federal action, the federal waters are closed until June 1st of each year. The bag limit is 2 fish with a 16-inch minimum size limit in federal waters. Bag limit's 2 fish and a 15-inch minimum size limit in state waters. The proposed amendment would clarify that red snapper caught in those federal waters during the period of time when they're open for recreational take, those count as part of the bag limit established for the take of red snapper in Texas state waters. So essentially, this proposed amendment would clarify that red snapper caught in federal waters during the period of time when they're open would count towards that 4-fish bag in state waters. This will hopefully prevent any confusion amongst anglers that may believe they can catch 2 red snapper from federal waters and then catch an additional 4 red snapper from state waters. And that concludes my presentation for our saltwater regulation proposals. I'll now pass that over to my friend and colleague, Ken Kurzowski, to present the freshwater proposals.
And while Ken's getting set up, I do want to take just a minute here to remind folks that you can submit your questions into the Q&A now for Dacus to answer at the end of Ken's presentation. Please feel free to utilize that at any point during the webinar.
Okay. Hello again, everyone. I'm Ken Kurzowski of TPWD's Inland Fisheries Division, and I'm presenting the proposed changes to the freshwater fishing regulations that, if they'll approve, as Dacus mentioned, will go into effect in September 1, 2021. Also, as he mentioned, the purpose of these presentations are to get see if we have any comments on the regulations that are being proposed during this regulatory cycle. Our primary focus in this regulatory cycle is blue and channel catfish. We are proposing new statewide length and bag limits, and also will be proposing some changes to the exceptions to the statewide regulations. Additionally, we have to make some changes to the float dimensions for passive gears, which were recently changed. Catfish have been the focus of our attention recently. We have conducted numerous studies on how to improve catfish spawning and data collection, and have surveyed anglers over the years to see what they value about catfish. A team of our biologists reviewed how we manage catfish over the last few years. An important part of this process was obtaining angler feedback on the potential changes we were considering. In addition to the statewide angler surveys, last summer we conducted some live webinars. We followed up with a news release at that time and made the webinar available on our website. What anglers told us that they want to protect catfish populations, but also want to continue to harvest fish. Those were our guideposts when we began our evaluation of our current regulations. Our current statewide regulation for blue and channel catfish consists of a 12-inch minimum length limit and a 25-fish daily bag, which combines both blues and channels. That's been in place since 1995. We have multiple exceptions in place, such as on the border waters with Louisiana and Oklahoma. We also have some reduced bag limits, such as 5 fish per day on community fishing lakes and similar smaller water bodies. In some of those lakes, we are stocking catfish. The supply of those fish is limited, and we want to spread the opportunity to catch or harvest fish to as many people as possible in those situations. The reduced bag facilitates that. We also have exceptions for specific populations around the state to address population characteristics in those locations. Our proposal for the statewide regulations for catfish is to remove the 12-inch minimum length limit on blues and channels. We would retain the 25 fish combined daily bag, but of those 25 fish, anglers could harvest no more than 10 fish 20 inches or longer. Impacts of anglers on the graduated bag will probably be minimal. From our angler harvest surveys, we know few anglers harvest 25 fish, and even fewer harvest more than 10 catfish over 20 inches. In our statewide catfish angler survey, catching big fish was not a major desire of most anglers, although some do focus on that. Most anglers said they would rather catch catfish to eat, and this regulation is designed for that, while also providing some protection for the larger fish to improve quality and big fish potential. This regulation will be used for most waters statewide. This exception is similar to the statewide regulations for blue and channel, no minimum length limit and 25 bag, but as noted in yellow, modifies the number of fish 20 inches or larger that can be harvested from 10 into two categories, 5 fish over 20 inches, and of those 5 fish, only 30 inches or larger. This regulation directs harvest to the smaller, easily replaceable fish and protects larger fish while allowing the harvest of one large fish. This regulation would primarily impact blue catfish anglers, especially those using trout lines and jug lines, but catfish populations and these anglers would benefit by the reduction in the harvest of larger fish. While it is designed to improve blue catfish population, it will also maintain quality in catfish populations. We have identified some anglers who desire improved quality in big fish opportunities, and this regulation addresses that. We are proposing 12 locations for this category at this point. In the first column, the 6 locations noted in white are all currently under statewide regulations. In the next column, Kirby and Palestine currently have a no minimum length limit of 50 fish bag and a limit of 5 fish over 20 inches. So for these, we will add a limit of 1 over 30 inches. Louisville, Richland, Chambers, and Waco currently are under 30 to 45 inch slot limit. Tawakoni currently has a 25 bag with limits of 7 over 20 and 2 over 30. So those will go to 5 and 1. All of these water bodies have catfish populations where we want to maintain or increase the high quality of those fisheries through the use of special limits. The final exception for blue and channel catfish we are proposing would be a 14-inch minimum length limit and a 15 fish combined daily bag. This regulation will be used in situations where there are concerns about limited spawning, sometimes combined with high harvest, which could damage the population, or for reservoirs that have experienced a catastrophic event, such as a fish kill, and the population abundance needs to be rebuilt. All these lakes are currently under statewide regulations. Three of these lakes, Bronick, Calaveras, and Fayette County, are power plant lakes that have high angling pressure, and we do sometimes encounter issues with catfish spawning in those types of lakes. Choke Canyon is a larger reservoir that has high harvest, especially for blue catfish. Proctor Lake is between Brownwood and Stephenville, and while a popular spot for catfish, it has a low abundance population. Limiting harvest in all those locations could help boost population abundance. We are also proposing to add 2 reservoirs to an existing regulation category. Texas-Louisiana border waters currently have no minimum length limit of 50 fish bag, and anglers are limited to harvesting no more than 5 catfish 30 inches or longer. These regulations are partly a compromise with Louisiana's more liberal harvest philosophy. These waters do produce lots of catfish, so overharvest is not much of a concern. We are proposing to add 2 large East Texas reservoirs with similar catfish populations to this category. Livingston currently has a 50 fish bag with a 12-inch minimum, and Rayburn is under statewide rules. This will have the benefit of having our 3 big East Texas reservoirs under the same limits, as some anglers do fish all 3. Blue and channel catfish are the only game fish that can be caught from Texas public waters and sold. The statute approved by the Texas legislature in 1991 specified the areas of the state where this is legal. Also in statute is the specified 14-inch minimum length limit. We have a separate section for commercial regulations in our rules, so some exceptions that are proposed to be implemented in the areas of the state legal for the sale of catfish will also be listed in that section to be enforceable. Finally, we need to standardize the descriptions for float dimensions in the passive gear rules. We propose to standardize those as length and width rather than height and diameter. Also, we have inadvertently listed the width of the float for minnow traps as 6 inches, and it should be 3. That's my presentation of this year's freshwater fishing regulations. As noted here, you can go back to the site to comment on these proposals and the proposed regulation changes for saltwater fishing that DAC has presented, and also all the hunting proposals. The commission will be meeting on March 25th to review these proposals, take public input, and vote on those. The meeting starts at 9:30, and details on that meeting will be posted coming up on our website. And once again, all these proposals, if approved, would start September 1, 2020. So Holly, that's concludes my presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Ken. We don't have a ton in the Q&A right now. Maybe a few more for Dacus, which I don't know if you want to type your answer or unmute yourself.
Sure. No, thanks, Holly. Got a question about blue crab as bait, and we don't distinguish between the lesser blue crab and the more common blue crab. So yes, you can use those as bait, just as long as it's 5% by number, again, or of undersized blue crab may be possessed for bait, but they must be kept in a separate container.
Thank you, Dacus. I see a question about if saltwater regulations have been covered already. They did. They were covered a little bit earlier. This webinar is being recorded and it will be posted to social media, I believe at some point tomorrow, if not by the end of the week. So if you missed anything that we covered here today, you can go ahead and watch that on our social media. And again, you can provide comments through our online portal. Is it on your page, Ken? It's not. I believe it's the 25th. Right? Yeah.
Right.
Or no, the 24th, you can provide comment on that website that we've got on the screen right now.
And I would also know if you go to that link, all the proposals are listed there, and there also is narrated PowerPoints that Dacus and I did. So if you didn't get enough of us tonight, you can go there and watch us again. So
there's a few ways that you can still get information about everything that we've covered here today if you missed any of it. We'll give it just a little bit more time in case anyone else has any questions that you want to submit to us. I'm not seeing anything else come through. We'll give it maybe another minute. While we're waiting for maybe a last minute question before we wrap up completely, I do want to remind you all that we will be putting this on social media. So again, if you missed any part of it, you can catch us on social media, or you can catch what Ken and Dacus pre-recorded on our website as well. You will be receiving an email from Zoom at some point tomorrow with links to where the online portal where you can submit your comments and more contact information for additional questions where you can reach out to either Ken or our coastal staff.
Yeah, Holly, if I can, please. We're getting several comments on the fish kill, and gang, I certainly appreciate the questions and concern. And to answer those questions, yes, fish kill estimates are forthcoming. We are in the phase of quantifying those numbers, and we'll have those out to the public shortly. Another question about proposed changes on speckled trout. Not in this proposal package. package right now. This was dealing with crab trap fishing in Aransas Bay and a clarification item for red snapper. However, we will be looking at the impact of the recent fish kill and working with our team of biologists and our leadership here at Texas Parks and Wildlife, and working with our commission to determine the impact and if any management actions are necessary to speed up the recovery of any of the fish populations, including speckled trout.
Thank you, Dacus, for answering those too for folks. I know it's on everyone's mind after the past few weeks. And I'm not seeing anything else coming through. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Again, you will be getting a follow-up email from Zoom with links and more information about where you can provide your comments, where you can ask your questions. And this recording will be available online on our social media soon. So thank you guys again so much. Thank you, Dacus. Thank you, Ken, for presenting this evening. We appreciate it.
And thank you, Holly, for helping us out. We really appreciate you hosting this.
Thanks for everybody for listening in.
With that, we will see you all later.
Thanks, y'all.